All right, we are at drum tip number 16-6E squared 5. And today we're going to talk all about that left foot control. And this lesson in particular is going to be applicable to any instrument you're going to be playing. So even if you're not a drummer, this lesson is going to be applicable to you to a certain extent. It's just way more important on the drums as you being the timekeeper. And your left foot, that is going to be your biggest timekeeper as a drummer, even when you're playing on the hi-hat with the stick. It's still playing a crucial role in making sure the timing is correct in your song and everything is on tempo and not wavering around in speed. And when you first start playing drums, usually that left foot is probably the last limb you're going to think about, right? You're just concerned usually with your rhythm hand, your bass drum on the foot, and a snare on the left hand, right? So, right? But once you start getting into fills and learning more intricate beats, you're going to want to start incorporating the left foot. Random shitty beat as an example. So, the point of today's lesson is really to talk about how to get your left foot independence there. And my advice here is once again going to apply to everyone who is a musician and ultimately an instrumentalist in some way. The way I learned to keep independence on my hi-hat with my left foot was whenever I would listen to music, I would tap my left foot in rhythm. Yeah, every single time. I made it like a crazy rule that when I was listening to music, I had to tap my left foot, right? And at the time, my work was an hour away from me, and I used to drive an hour there, an hour back each day, and I would have my CDs playing in the car, and every day for at least 2 hours, I was tapping my foot at a steady tempo listening to music. And after a few months of doing that, your left foot is going to be able to keep time no matter what you're doing. Even if you're messing up your time over here, which happens to me all the time when I'm improvising, my left foot will still keep a steady rhythm just because it's so ingrained in me to keep going. It's almost like a reflex. And as you get better and more comfortable with it, you start putting accents on it naturally. And you'll see that once I start soloing and improvising around. My foot's not keeping a steady tempo like this. It's kind of wavering, getting louder and softer. And when I hit some accent notes, I'm just subconsciously stepping harder on the hi-hat, right? But still, once again, trying to keep that steady rhythm. And this is so crucial. And the reason why I say this is so important for every musician is because every musician should be doing this when they're at least in the recording room. If you're a guitarist and you're sitting down recording an overdub and you're listening back to the song and your left foot ain't tapping, I'm telling you something's wrong there. You should be tapping in time. You're going to get a better performance no matter what. That's just bare minimum, right? So you should always be, as a musician, always be tapping your left foot. Only in performance circumstances, like if you're in a big orchestra, it's not good etiquette to tap your foot, but you still move your toes within your shoe, right? So even in them circumstances, you're trying to get your tempo as steady as possible. That's really important. All right, I'm going to stop talking. Let's just start improving. This is my first take of the day, so hopefully I don't do too bad. Let's just start it real slow. And then I'm just going to slowly bring up speed and push myself to my limits and try to go faster and faster. It's basically what I do when I practice, something like this. Same little rusty. Foot's getting stuck in my the beater rather. Alright, so that was pretty sloppy, but let's just keep going on. Maybe we'll edit that part out. You know, I originally was going to edit that part out because for a drum instructional video, that was way too sloppy to be putting on the internet. But it actually wound up being a perfect example of what I'm trying to teach in this lesson. If you go back and watch that and pay attention to my left foot, despite all the madness that I'm ensuing with my hands, and I'm completely out of time in a lot of parts, and at one point I'm moving a cymbal, and, you know, I just make a bunch of mistakes here and there. The whole time my left foot is steady, and I stand by that. If you reverse back, you could watch it back. My left foot is steady enough and on tempo enough for, at least by my standards. I don't want to have some goober out there named, like, Brandon or something that's gonna like put it on like a tempo machine and tell me I'm off. But it doesn't matter. For my purposes, that is on time enough. Okay, back to the lesson. All right, so I'm like really rushing there, really putting up the tempo. Once again, just like kind of an example, that's usually what I try to do when I practice my speed. I obviously don't ramp it up that quickly. I'm just kind of doing it quickly on video because no one wants to listen to me solo for like 10 minutes, right? So, you know, this exercise obviously also applicable when you're just doing, you know, a regular drum beat. Let's just do something a little bossa nova-y. Oh, and another thing, something really important, especially for the beginner drummers out there, is that you got to make sure that you have the clutch on your hi-hat set correctly. I see all the time whenever I go to use someone's drum set who is new to drumming, this baby is always on so damn tight, and you want it to be loose on there. You know, the amount of looseness is obviously going to be up to preference. I like to keep it pretty loosey-goosey, but one thing's for certain, you don't want it to be super tight on the clutch. You want to adjust it so it's loose. And once you do that, it makes it a lot easier to keep time on your left foot because you don't have to put, I don't know how to explain it. You get like a bounce going on your left foot, right? Like right now, my foot is bouncing double the amount that the hi-hat is moving up and down. I'm using the slack in the clutch to not make a noise, if that makes sense, right? So I'm able to like, that's how I'm able to put like accents at weird times just by doing that and kind of using silent strokes. I don't know what you would call it, but I'm sure there's probably a name for it out there somewhere, because I certainly didn't come up with it. All right. I'm really trying to get weird with it. Alright, this video's rambling on. I think that's the end of the video. Long story short, as a musician, you should have total independence of your left foot. It's as simple as that. You need to be able to keep time, and as a drummer, that's an essential function. Obviously, today I was just showcasing a straight beat, but, your hi-hat patterns with your left foot could get more intricate than that. But obviously, if you're just learning, just stick with keeping eighth notes or quarter notes, maybe just on the snare hits. Keep it simple, right? And then you build from there. But if you can't just mess around and solo independently on this left foot, that means you need more practice with just going like this, listening to music, doing everyday things. Like I said, I was driving an hour, so I'm actively driving, and I'm still keeping my left foot steady. Obviously, if you're driving a clutch, that's not going to work. But if you're driving an automatic, you could do it, at least safely. This isn't advice. Maybe don't try that. I stand by it. All right. Good night, folks.